Well, my dear friends, it was bound to happen. The Rey movie that was set for December of 2026 has been removed from the official Disney release calendar. This has been reported by Deadline, The Wrap, and Variety. We know there have been issues. The screenwriter walked away from the project, then some Lucasfilm sources went public and said that the studio doesn't know what it's doing on the cinematic front. And now, despite numerous interviews with Daisy Ridley where she's reassuring fans, things are going really well. Unsurprisingly, the movie's been pulled from the 2026 December release slot. A couple of things to clarify. The Mandalorian and Grogu is still releasing on time, in the same year 2026, but in May. Some are asking, is it possible the Jon Favreau movie gets pushed to December? I'm gonna say no. Recently at D23 in Brazil, they clarified it's still coming on May 22nd. And now we know instead of the Rey movie in December, another Disney film, Ice Age 6, is replacing it. It does sound like a bit of a joke, especially the subheading being the film is being replaced by Ice Age 6, but I'm dead serious, my dear friends. I have nothing else to say. This delay was a long time coming. And now we have official confirmation from Disney and from Lucasfilm the Rey movie's being pushed. Could it be 2027? Even that's in doubt. The Rey movie, or should I say the Rey movies, are many years away because they have no solid plan in place. I think Jeff Snyder kind of alluded to the fact he's heard some information of who the writer is of the standalone Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy movie. He sort of alludes to Lawrence Kasdan, but he doesn't say for certain. With recent Star Wars news, it feels as though history really repeats itself. People have forgotten. In November of 2012, 12 years ago, almost to the week, Lawrence Kasdan and Simon Kinberg locked in deals to write and produce Star Wars installments. Simon Kinberg is going to write and produce the new trilogy of movies, but as for the one that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is directing, the writer might be Lawrence, who of course is known for his work on The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Solo, The Force Awakens, and Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark. Lucasfilm is falling back on things they know. The situation is pretty dire, we know that much. But even then, there is uncertainty, because Lucasfilm have been trying to get Lawrence Kasdan's help for a while now. They sought out his suggestions and advice for Episode 9, but he refused. He was sick of it, saying this: "I can't take it. I didn't want to sit down and read someone else's Star Wars movie. I'm just not interested in Star Wars anymore." I also just want to point out, for him, Solo, and its flop, was the final straw. He said at the time, Lucasfilm blew it. I wonder what he thinks now. And I just want to clarify that when this was brought up on the Hot Mic podcast, it was just brought up as a suggestion, a good guess. The insider couldn't talk about what he knows, so this is pure speculation. Would Lawrence really want to come back? If he thought things were bad in 2018, imagine what he's thinking about the management today. If Lucasfilm is doing a soft reset, I can imagine that maybe Kathleen Kennedy is trying to recreate an older version of the writer's room at Skywalker Ranch. The evidence racks up. Simon Kinberg has been at Lucasfilm for a long time. If they're getting Lawrence Kasdan back, Dave Filoni is heavily involved in the creative side, even on projects he's not directly working on. So even though the new trilogy is being marketed as a new start, is it a desperate attempt from Lucasfilm to go back to the way things were? Nonetheless, don't be surprised if it's not 2026 or 2027. I'm just surprised it's taken them this long to kind of come forward and say, look, this movie isn't going to be ready on time. And there's such a disparity between what's being said by the likes of Daisy Ridley, who recently did various interviews as part of a circuit and even the BBC, and is saying it's so exciting, this is a new chapter for Rey, big things to come, she can't wait to get back into the role. And on the other hand, Lucasfilm is completely crumbling when it comes to announcements, when it comes to behind the scenes. I've semi-seriously said in the past, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie never gets made. I'm contemplating that as one of the most likely outcomes at this point. Some news sources have come out defending this and saying, we shouldn't assume it's cancelled, it's still going to happen at some point. But since Star Wars Celebration, can we honestly say there's been any good news coming out of this movie? And then they wonder why Star Wars fans aren't excited anymore. They announce things years in advance with no plan, no schedule in place. In some more positive Star Wars news, we just got a new TV spot for Skeleton Crew. We see the daily routine of some of the children, notably Wim, who eats cereal with blue milk. Sound familiar? This is very similar to Cyril Khan from Andor. Cereal with blue milk seems to be a very popular choice for breakfast in the Star Wars universe. We see the kids in class, notably Neil putting his hand up, taking the school bus, and this repeats. They're showing us the world of Atatin is a very protected bubble, no danger and no thrills, which is why Wim asks Neil, do you ever want to do something exciting? And that's when they discover the abandoned Jedi temple, they discover the Onyx Cinder, and their journey begins. We even see them through hyperspace, not to mention a pirate ship with similar markings to that of Gorian Shard from The Mandalorian Season 3, but considering he's dead, and a difference in design, I would guess this is Vane's ship. Another really interesting detail, my dear friends, in Neil's living room, there is a relief painting on the wall, which appears to depict a sculpted version of maybe a family member or a holy figure from the Neil species religion. I just thought it was an interesting touch. Now, another major piece of Skeleton Crew news is that Jude Law has addressed concerns over haters in the Star Wars fandom. This comes from GQ. In a brand new profile with the Jod Nar Narwood actor, Law talked about the high expectations surrounding the upcoming show, and how he feels, quote, a little bit nervous about the way fans are going to respond. He says, quote, it makes me a little bit nervous, if I'm honest. In the same way I felt a responsibility to make sure Dumbledore had a heart and soul that was true, it's the same with Star Wars, he confessed. He then goes on to say, there are haters everywhere. People have very acute opinions of this galaxy and how it should be handled. Obviously, you hope you're going to get a majority of them on your side, and you're aware that you may not win all of them over. And look guys, while we know very little about Jod Nar Narwood, it was never going to be Jude Law's acting that fans had a problem with, or at least you'd assume. I haven't seen the same level of heated discussions for Skeleton Crew that we saw for the Acolyte. There isn't that level of intensity, and as a Star Wars fandom, we're very passionate, very opinionated. There are going to be people who take things way too far. I don't think that's going to be as true for Skeleton Crew. Even for those who don't like it, it's not as stigmatizing. They've been upfront about the fact this is very 80s, very Goonies in space. I might be wrong, and maybe I haven't seen some of the more enraged opinions about Skeleton Crew, but they've already told us what this show's going to be, and it's focusing on very different things compared to a show that is Force-focused, like The Acolyte. And this is not a criticism. I want to preface this by saying I'm very much looking forward to Skeleton Crew. It doesn't matter as much as shows like The Mandalorian or Ahsoka, even in the context of the New Republic. We're not expecting major implications for the likes of Din, Grogu, Luke, Leia, Mon Mothma, Ahsoka, Boba Fett. So, in a way, there isn't as much reason for the creatives behind the show to be nervous. Of course there's going to be criticism. For any piece of art, that's normal, expected, necessary I would say. Absolutely some people go way too far with it and that's never okay, that's never acceptable to go for personal attacks. And naturally for Jude Law being such a veteran actor, someone who's been a Star Wars fan his whole life, it's normal he's nervous. And just a hunch, if anything I think he's going to be the best part of it. The years of acting experience, what he brought to Fantastic Beasts, what I think he's going to bring to the Star Wars galaxy as a former Jedi turned pirate. He went on to say, there's a lot of originality, and I hope that will bring the feeling of fun to those who watch it.